More than 1,000 years ago, a group of people mastered winds and waves to sail to many parts of Europe and to the unknown world. They were from Scandinavia, Danes, Swedes, and Norwegians. With their sleek long ships and their iron swords, they were known as Vikings. Their long ships, intended for warfare and exploration, were designed for speed and agility and were equipped with oars to complement the sail and also to enable the ship to navigate independently of the wind. Under sail, the longship probably attained a speed in excess of 12 knots. It had a long and narrow hull as well as a shallow draft in order to facilitate landings and troop deployments in shallow water. During the year 1880, the sons of the owner of the Gokstad farm in Vestfold, Norway, began to dig in a mound on their land. The mound was commonly known as the King's Mound. The mound proved to be the burial site of an ancient king or chieftain, and in the mound they discovered a large Viking longship, excellently preserved, that has come to be known as the Gokstad ship. It is now the largest of several vessels in the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo. Soon after the discovery of the Gokstad ship, a full-sized replica was built. The replica was sailed across the Atlantic Ocean from Bergen, Norway, to be exhibited at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. Warren Spielman of Long Beach, California, a retired mechanical engineer with an interest in model boats, decided to build a small model of the Gokstad ship that could actually move through the water with the power of its oars. He needed someone to carve small Viking oarsmen and asked his friend and neighbor Bill Sargent to do the job. Bill had been a U.S. Army Air Force pilot during World War II and was a skilled woodworker. He had already carved some small wooden Vikings and agreed to carve miniature figures of the crew of the small Gokstad ship. The result was what Warren calls Little Gokstad. It is 39 inches or 1 meter in length, of course much shorter than the original, but it retains the same lines, although its depth has been increased to allow space for the rowing mechanism. The original ship had 32 rowers, while Little Gokstad has 16.
Can you tell me what the hull is made of, Warren?
Oh, well, the hull is made out of 1/8 inch plywood. It's cut. I cut my plywood with the scissors. It sounds terrible, but anyway, it's an 1/8 inch plywood, and it was built on top of a foam form that I originally carved, and then I laid it on top of that. That's how I got the shape. Plus, this is driven by servos. And the servos are originally intended to be these. These two servos drive the oars back and forth, and they do the power. And they weren't big enough, and heavy enough. So I had to go replace them with these. And so I put them in there, and then I put this on top of it. So this is an example of the problems I ran into trying to get this thing built.
How did you come up with this idea in the first place?
I build model boats. One of these days, if you want, we can. I got one. I have a Barbie doll that runs a kayak. I have.
At the heart of Little Gokstad's radio control system is a microprocessor, programmed to interpret signals from a radio transmitter and send instructions to servos that provide power to the oars. 2 servos on each side raise and lower a sliding beam that holds pins that drive the oars. The beam is moved fore and aft by a 3rd servo to complete the rowing action. The rowing action includes movement both forward and backward, and for turning, port side or starboard side. The processor can also make the oars on each side move in opposite directions at the same time, causing the boat to spin. The radio transmitter can also control speed.
I like rowboats. They're sort of fun to do.
And you're a retired engineer.
And I'm a retired engineer, and I'm not a computer expert, but you have to program the micro. I guess you know that this is all run by a small microprocessor, and the microprocessor has to be programmed, and I program it on my computer, and that's what I do. But the problem is I don't have enough talents to go and do little men, so that's why we use Bill. Bill came up with it, and you know, he did all this for free. I mean, he's just a neat guy, but I guess we have a lot of fun doing this. And the other thing is, he does stay awake at night trying to solve these problems. And so this is good for old people to go and fuss around with stuff like this, you know. So. This is where the batteries would go.
I see.
To power it, and then there's the on-off switches right here. And then the mechanism, you can't, these guys are all screwed down. They, sort of could show you. But for instance, see the oars come out like this, and then this is screwed down onto a thing, and these are all, the guys are all tied together with elastic. You see, and then the feet are cemented down to the bottom, and then they cement in there. So the problem is when you're making something like this, you don't make one, you have to make 16.
How long did it take you to build this, Warren?
Let's see. I started it in 2005.
And it's now 2012.
And it's now 2012. Now, I didn't work on it continuously, but I'm an engineer, and there's a lot of engineering problems on this, in addition to the electronic problems, and then just all sorts of problems. And then just, I mean, how do you make it? And then I had one of the problems is that the deck had to be raised up because I had to get the mechanism in. And the actual Viking boats, the Vikings they would carry a box, and that would be their own personal stuff. And then they would sit on that, but we didn't have enough room for the box, so it just made them look like this.
Bill, You were a pilot in World War II, isn't that right?
Absolutely.
And what did you fly?
C-47s.
R-4Ds.
Troop carrier. And Navy R-5Ds.
Yeah, we used to call them R-4Ds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we flew from Cherbourg on through.
And how did you graduate from flying C-47s to making Vikings?
I have no idea.
Ask him, Warren, you're a retired engineer, is that right?
That's correct.
What kind of engineering?
Mechanical.
And how did you move from that to this?
I guess way back when I was sick, and I just fussing around. And I started fussing around with models, and my first model was a stern wheeler, stuff like that. But then I got involved in and then I also got involved with the computer. And the computer works with these things. I mean, you know, this microprocessor that's used in this thing.
Okay, so you're going to carry that away, huh?
Take it home.
Okay, we'll see you guys later.
Your boat.